all people to be allowed to leave out that distinguished young Air Silver's conference was Hugo Salinas Price, who's known as Mr. Silver in Mexico, and one of the finest city men I've ever known, that's for sure. As you can tell from that way back when, all of us were ravingly bullish about gold and silver. Now, I'm talking about facts. That's all I want to get into. I want to get you confident about what you think is going to happen and who you want to go with. Because meanwhile, we have some critics at this conference, as some of you may know. And quite frankly, they've got it wrong almost all the way up. And they still have it wrong. And they're neutral to bearish. The fact is, John Nadler is here, started getting in our case by calling us the tin foil hat brigade, has been looking for gold to collapse as long as I can remember. All the guy does is woo-hoo us, and he's looking for $800 gold this year. I mean, how wrong can you get? He doesn't know what GATA knows, or is disingenuous about it. Last year at this very conference, Jeff Christian stood up and said, gold is going to average 941 pounds for the next decade. I mean, how wrong can you get? This is the same Jeff Christian publicly called GATA much obliged. And their colleague, industry spokesman, shouted out GATA at the FT Gold Conference, this is 10 years ago now, in Paris, and said that we were a bunch of fools. At the same time, he was encouraging Barrick Gold and Anglo Gold to do forward sell hedging as part of their ongoing business process. Over the past year, Barrick covered its remaining hedges at about $1,000 an ounce. This was recommended when gold was less than $300. They're covering the last at $1,000. And Anglo Gold just recently announced they're covering their remaining hedges on the books at $1,300 per ounce. Who were the fools? In 2008, this very same Paul Walker, who ran with us out at the Denver Gold Group Conference, a very distinguished conference that we're not allowed to come to, told the attendees that in 2010 he expected he had 3 different scenarios for gold, $700 and $1,000 per ounce was his target. How wrong can you get? And you compare that to those pitiful sort of understanding of the market. This is what GATA did, January 2008. We're not keeping a secret, changing our mind. $264,000 ad in the Wall Street Journal, January 2008. In this ad, this is before the financial crisis, as we felt what was coming because of the gold price suppression scheme. We used words catastrophe and disaster cover. In this ad. And that's exactly what happened. And in this ad, we talked again about $3,000 to $5,000 gold. So, what I'm trying to get to here, again, we have a choice of getting to understand the ramifications of the gold price suppression scheme or mocking us. And the people that have paid attention over the years are pretty happy campers. So, the question you might want to ask, how can we get it right facts, price predictions, versus our critics get it so wrong? And basically, it's so simple. We've understood that there was and is a gold price suppression scheme, and we understood the ramification of it. And we knew that the establishment, the people didn't get it, were working with the wrong numbers, the wrong supply-demand numbers. For example, you might have heard in the 2-minute trailer, the central banks have well less than half of the 30,000 tons they claim they have. All the sufficient things you'll hear about 30,000 tons. Well, they don't have it. More than half of it has been left out or sloughed out. It's gone. Now, am I not just making this up out of thin air? Last year, I mentioned this to you. My colleague Frank Barroso, a very distinguished guy, did a lot of stuff for the World Bank and many other people. I've known Frank very well since 1980. Wrote in this book before GATA was even thought of being in existence. Here's what he wrote. In Chapter 3, we discovered 2 absolutely crucial facts about the gold market. First, outstanding gold bulls at perhaps 8,000 tons far exceed conservative consensus estimates. And second, the evidence builds that global gold demand and the deficit of the gold market is perhaps 600 tons higher than Goldfield Mineral Services estimates, which is the organization that Paul Walker heads up. The bottom line is that he discovered, and put his on this way back when, that demand was much greater than expected, that gold was flowing into the market, was not accounted for, and it all started with Robert Rubin when he headed up was in charge of Goldman Sachs' gold operations, and it's a long story, but I presented this in front of the CFTC last March. As further corroboration that GATA has been right about these demand numbers, John Emery, myself, Chris Powell had a breakfast with Javier Wallace of the FT about a year and a half ago, and he said, because we knew about the Chinese buying, it wasn't known, and the establishment missed it. He was surprised that they missed it. So what I want to do is then tell you that Frank has updated his numbers, and GATA's Rich Howe, James Turk, way back 8 or 9 years ago, all came up with using different methodologies that the gold flows were much more than known and understood by the market. And Frank, this is incredible. May 10, 2001, Durban, South Africa, had this conference. Finally got some press at the South African Broadcasting Company, did some TV work on it. Frank said in 7 to 10 years, the central banks are going to hit the wall with selling gold as a rule, not all of them. But the European central banks stopped selling gold about last November, December, which was exactly in the middle of that 7 to 10 year period. So he knew what he was talking about. Now, it's a silver conference. So how does this all relate to silver? Demand is the gold price. You couldn't have gold going this way or this way and silver here, because it would raise too many smoke tests wouldn't work. So they knew that they had to regulate silver price along with gold price. But in one thing, gold supply demand numbers, you think we know pretty well. I actually don't have much of a handle on the silver situation. I leave the likes of David Morgan, who we have a great deal of respect for. However, we're going to approach it from a little different angle, which you may not hear from others. Back then, they knew they were not going to have the above available supply of physical silver like they still do in gold, even though it's dwindled dramatically. So they knew they would have to go to the derivatives market, paper market, to have gold compete with silver, and also they figured they could make a great deal of money with it. And who got the assignment to do this? For the most part, but J.P. Morgan, who just happens to be the Fed's bank. Knowing this for a long time, GATA has gone out of our way to make life as miserable as we can for J.P. Morgan Chase. Now, in that regard, it's a little fun story. This is where the James Bond stuff starts to kick in. I went to see Bart Chilton, who was a CFTC commissioner in December of 2008. And I just said, this guy gets long blonde hair, and he was talking about stuff. This guy sounds like he could be somebody we could talk to. And sure enough, I got there, and he had 4 people from the CFTC Senior Council who took notes. Really wasn't impressed. Anyway, contact for another year, and the CFTC then announced, mostly because of him, that they were going to have position limit hearings on March 25th of this year, and because of Bart, GATA, on behalf of GATA, I was going to make a presentation. Without him, there would never have been a chance. So, in advance, we had to give a prepared testimony to the chairman, Gary Gensler. In that letter, said the following: the CFTC's own reports on November 29th show that just 2 U.S. banks held 43% of the commercial and short position in gold and 68% of the commercial and short position in silver. In gold, these 2 banks